everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my channel. I do want to apologize right off the bat because I am super hoarse today, so you are going to have to put up with my very hoarse voice as I intro this video. But it is time for a new project, and by the time this video is released, the newest season of Bridgerton will also have been released. So I figured that I should probably make myself a Bridgerton dress. And actually Simplicity has made this pretty easy because Simplicity has come out with two brand new Bridgerton patterns. These two right here. So both of these patterns, one of the really nice things that I like about them is that they're actually, for a commercial pattern, pretty size inclusive. These both go up to a size 28, and because of ease and the typical things that you get in Simplicity patterns, they really fit even a little bit larger than that. So I super appreciate the fact that I do not have to size up with these patterns, and I am excited to give them a try and hope that they actually work. I am going to be comparing them to Laughing Moon 138 as well, just because I've used this pattern before and I know that it works for me and it actually has a historical basis, whereas these probably don't. But hey, we're talking Bridgerton, like there's not a ton of historical accuracy that needs to happen with this project, right? I mean, the TV show isn't, so why would the project need to be? I am very, very excited about the fabrics that I have gotten for this project. I actually bought 2 sets of fabrics for this project. Like, I changed my mind and then went back and got different fabrics instead, because at first this was going to be a little bit more Featherington based with like bright colors and stuff like that, and then I watched the most recent trailer for Bridgerton and there were no Featherington colors in sight. So I went back and I got Bridgerton colors, and I am super, super happy that I did. I am basing this entire project around this freaking gorgeous fabric. Like, oh my gosh, it is so pretty. I don't even know if I'm showing you the front. That's the back. It's even prettier on the front. That's the front. It's so pretty. So both with the Featherington and the Bridgerton options that I was going to do, this was the outermost fabric, but then I had like hot pink to set it off for Featherington, and now I have something different. So there's going to be 3 layers to this dress altogether. The second top layer, you need a bit of sparkle, right? The second top layer is going to be this. I don't know how well the sparkles are catching on the camera, but this is actually a really, really light blue organza, and it has like large flecks of glitter plus these little tiny silvery studs. Oh, that's better now, you can see it, that are all over the fabric. And so this fabric is going to go underneath this fabric, and together it'll just add that element of sparkle, and the organza I'm hoping will add a little bit of body as well. Now, I wanted to get like just sort of a, you know, poly matte satin or something like that as my base layer underneath, but just FYI, if you're shopping for fabric at Joann's, blue and pink are out this year, or I guess I should say light blue and bright pink, or any color of pink that is not like beigey peach. Yeah, those are all out this year. So I'm having to make do with cotton. At least, you know, it'll be a little bit more breathable. I'm going to be using just this light blue Kona quilting cotton underneath. So all together, we are going to be looking at something like this. It is so pretty. Hopefully it's sparkling for you. And I am just loving these colors. And before you point out to me that I am currently also in the middle of another project that uses these exact same colors. Yes, I know I have a blue and pink problem. It's a thing, or really I have a light blue problem. It's a thing. I am aware of it, but also, aren't these so pretty? So I have already gone and I've cut out the 2 Simplicity patterns, and it's interesting because they came out at the same time. They're both Regency, they're both meant for Bridgerton, but actually there's quite a bit of differences between the 2 patterns. So what I'm doing right now is I'm comparing the 2 patterns, and I'm also going to compare them with the Laughing Moon pattern just to see kind of what I should be aware of. For example, that Simplicity pattern has a zipper up the back. I am not doing that. And another thing that the Laughing Moon pattern has that I really like is that it actually has a little bit of a waistband, and I find that that is much more flattering on me for a Regency dress than a Regency gown that just has like 2 types of gathering that meet right here that's not flattering. I like a little fitted band. So I am going to be putting that element in for sure. But I'm really curious to see how much, if any, alteration these patterns need because they already go to my size. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to do a mock-up first, of course, but before I do start in the mock-up, I am going to compare all 3 patterns and see how that goes. By the way, I just had to show you this sweater because it's my newest purchase and I'm in love with it. It has Chippendale on it. Like, oh my gosh, so freaking cute. It is from Hot Topic. I'll leave a link below in case you wanted to get it. It runs super, super huge. The size chart said that I should probably be a 3X. I am wearing an XL. So just FYI, it runs super huge. But anyway, let's go ahead and dive into the Bridgerton dress. Okay, so now I'm torn because I have basically stacked up all 3 of these patterns on top of each other for each piece, and I'm looking at the differences. And in some cases, like this one right here, this is Simplicity 9502, which is this one right here. This bodice front is actually pretty darn close to my Laughing Moon bodice front, which my Laughing Moon, I have already adjusted that to my sizes. I made this dress right here a few years ago from that pattern. So anyway, this one is really, really close to here, but it's not quite right. And so I'm really torn because this would obviously be a lot easier if I just use the pattern that I already have. For example, one of the things here that's very different is the strap length, because this one probably has the strap hitting right at the shoulder, or the seam, I guess, hitting right at the shoulder, whereas my Regency dress, it comes down the other side, which I think is more common for Regency, where it does come down the other side and you get this sort of look. So the seam is actually sitting there on the back. The other thing that I like about this, which is still not quite as like narrow backed as a lot of Regency dresses, but a lot of Regency dresses are very narrow in the center back piece and then curve up. And so a lot of it's actually the side back piece that takes up a lot of that space. And so looking at these are the back pieces right here. And this one is again the other one, but this one right here, this goes with this. And again, like, we're actually not super far off from the Laughing Moon, with the exception of the strap. So again, like, this is designed to sit up at the apex of the shoulder, whereas this is coming down the back. And I do like that look better. I know that kind of the whole point of this was to like show you, hey, this is the great Simplicity pattern and how accessible it is. And frankly, I mean, again, I've already made alterations to my Laughing Moon pattern. So you can see like my neck is dropped way lower, and this neck, well, this is still higher than the Laughing Moon as well. But yeah, now I'm torn basically in sort of all angles. I think this is the closer pattern to what I want, as opposed to this one, which is frankly a lot more costumey. And the sleeves are where things really get off though. So first off, my Laughing Moon sleeve, I made huge adjustments to it. It's 3 inches longer down here, 1 inch longer up top. So I've already adjusted that a lot. But it's also a pretty funky shape because it comes like, this is normally where the seam would be, but instead it comes up and the seam sort of sits in the curve. But these, the seam is in its normal place. This one is the one for that pink dress, and it's very, very different, like super very different than the other sleeve. So I don't think there's a way to like find a common ground between them. And then this one is even more different. I mean, look how vertical that is. Like, that's gonna make a really weird puff. It's just gonna be like a little vertical puff. So again, I'm torn. I think I might use the Laughing Moon, even though I wanted to set this up for simplicity. But I want this to be easy because it's already Wednesday. And this is the side back. So again, like, our side backs are pretty similar all together. This one is the one for the pink dress for simplicity. And again, like, we're looking pretty similar, but this one does creep in farther, which is that nice line that I prefer. You guys, I think I might use the Laughing Moon pattern. I apologize. I really wanted to show you this, and maybe I will for a future pattern. I'm gonna get some people's opinions and see what they say. But yeah, just know that this pattern is actually really close to the Laughing Moon pattern. Okay, I have polled my friends and they have given me really good advice because Regency bodices really don't take much fabric at all, and I do want to line my bodice anyway, even though it's already 3 layers. I really don't need to line it, but I want to anyway, and so I might as well just like take some scrap fabric, muslin or whatever, and make a mock-up of each of the 2 bodices, the one with the pink pattern from Simplicity and then the Laughing Moon pattern, because they're so close. I mean, it really is like just a little bit here, a little bit there, and then that shoulder difference. Those are the main differences. I did also examine the skirts, by the way, and I didn't put those out on camera because it's just hard to get that far away from skirt panels. You can actually see some of them hanging up in the background here. But the skirt panels, they are quite different. The fronts are actually literally identical. It is the same pattern piece, the skirt fronts. The skirt back, well, this Laughing Moon pattern, they actually have a side back and a back. The Simplicity pattern just has a back. And the Simplicity pattern is quite wide. I believe it's like almost the full panel of the fabric, and it is just a rectangle, and then it's pleated at the top. The Laughing Moon pattern, again, has that side back, and both the side back and the back are gored or angled. So they're wider at the bottom than they are at the top. And I did really like the cut of how my skirt was on my last dress that I made. So I think I am just going to go with that for my skirt panels, just use Laughing Moon. But keep in mind, I mean, it's not that different. It's just that there's a little more flair to it. I don't even know if the width is honestly that different. There's probably a little more width to the Laughing Moon. So I am gonna go ahead and try mock-ups of both bodices, and we're gonna see what the differences are. It is later and I have 2 bodice mock-ups put together, one of each of them, but it is a little too late for me to want to put on a corset, so I think I will be trying both of these on tomorrow. It is now the next day, and now I have my corset on, and I get to attempt to fit 2 different bodice mock-ups. Now, one thing that I want to say right away that I know is probably going to be wrong about the Laughing Moon one is that one of the changes that I made to this pattern when I made it last time was that this pattern calls for 2 enormous darts, one on each side of the bust, and they're just totally enormous, and they make things look absolutely ridiculous and pointy and not at all Regency. So one of the things that I did last time was I changed that into gathering. For some reason, for the sake of this mock-up, I still put the darts on. I don't know why, but I did it. So that's something that's almost certainly gonna have to change. The other thing that I'm a little bit nervous about is that the Laughing Moon pattern calls for like an overlap for when you put it on, but the Simplicity pattern has that zipper. So that means that there's only like the 5/8 inch seam allowance in the back. So we're gonna see how both of these fit, and we're gonna see how well I can do this by myself with these back closing bodices. All right, here is bodice number 1. This is the Laughing Moon bodice. You can see right off the bat these really pointy, ridiculous darts. The other thing that I'm noticing that I did not remember from before, but it could also just be like a changing time thing. This is the chemise that I've always worn with Regency, but if you notice, my chemise is showing here on the edges, and it is barely not showing like all the way around the edges that it is where it is not already showing. In other words, I need seam allowance with this. There is not enough seam allowance. Like, I need this to be a 1/2 inch further at least on all of these directions. So that is something to keep in mind because I thought that this was going to work perfectly, and clearly it is not. I think the length is just about perfect because, again, I do plan to do a little bit of a waistband, but even still I feel like it is probably coming to where I want it. It's going under my bust. That's important. In Bridgerton season 1, we had a lot of fit issues where, you know, seam lines were happening right here, and that's not a thing. So this is a lot better. The back is only pinned in 2 places. And it's hard to tell what's going on with the back, but it is pinned top and bottom, and it feels large. Like when I pinned the bottom, I'm pretty sure I pinned it with the correct amount of overlap, or at least like close-ish, and there's a bit in here, like it's not quite fitted. Now that is something that I could always fix just with the closures. I could move the hooks and eyes like a little bit farther, because we're not talking a big difference. We're talking maybe a 1/2 inch difference where it's not, could be not pinned correctly or whatever, but it is not quite right. I'm also trying to figure out, I can't tell No, yeah, my chemise is definitely showing above the back as well, so everywhere the neckline needs to come up. I think that the length is really good though. And I do really like where the seam comes down to in the back. I think that's really nice. And I think that where the shoulders are coming out to is also really good. Like it's, excuse me? Somebody needs attention. But I think it's really good. Like it's not going to set my sleeve seams too far off my shoulders, which is a frequent problem with like commercial patterns. So yeah, I thought this was going to be my lining potentially. It's not, clearly, because we need some neckline fixes here. Let's go ahead and try the Simplicity bodice and see how that does. So here is the Simplicity bodice. It is again loosely pinned, like one in the top and one in the bottom of the back. And I might say loosely pinned is really the operative word here, because I have pinned out, do you see this fin on my back? At the bottom part here, I've pinned out a good 3 inches on either side. It's supposed to be 5/8 of an inch, so it's humongous. I also realized that that has actually made, I was paying attention to this side seam, which is in the right place, but it has pulled this side seam back past where it should. So in other words, the front is too large. I mean, the front is also too large here, like, hi, what's going on here? And obviously my chemise is showing here, just barely not showing here. I don't know what it's doing in the back. Actually, I think it's mostly covered in the back. And it's showing a little bit here in the back edges too. So the Laughing Moon is definitely fitting better, but I almost wonder if this would be fixed by taking a big old chunk out of like the center front and just making the center front smaller and the center back a lot smaller. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely, the other one fits better, but I did want to use this one for you guys. So I'm a little torn. What is even going on with the darts? I don't know what is going on with the, like, I don't know what boobs these are shaped for. Low ones? Oh, you know what? It is probably shaped for not wearing a Regency corset or any corset whatsoever. Maybe that's the problem here. I feel like I want to look at this a little more intensely in the mirror and see what would happen if I took out just like that excess in the center, but there's a lot wrong with this. Okay, so I did start to try to make fixes to the Simplicity bodice. For one thing, the bust darts wound up fitting me if I pulled the whole bodice up, which is good because then actually the waistline is also hitting where it should, but I also needed to create a fin here, and it wasn't a fin that was even all the way up. If you notice, there is nothing taken out of like here up. This actually fits, so I can't just like take out a chunk of the center and make it work because it's angled. Also, it then makes weird gappy bits here, and the straps are loose, but like I haven't tried really to try and see how to take that out. Yeah. Oh, and I changed where the top was pinned, but it's still a lot less than where the bottom is pinned. So basically, I am having a lot of issues with this bodice. I am on a time crunch for this project. And although I really, really, really wanted to make the Simplicity bodice for you, I'm not going to. Maybe I will at a future date, but not when it's already Thursday and I want this project done by this weekend. So I'm gonna use the Laughing Moon. Now that said, again, I really may try to do this at some point and try to do all of the alterations to make this bodice fit. I have already done those alterations to the Laughing Moon pattern, with the exception obviously of the neckline being too low and showing my chemise everywhere. I've already done those alterations. So that was something that I did in the past. I think I made that in like 2018 maybe. I think I actually pattern tested that pattern when it was first coming out. I think that's what I did. And I made alterations to make it fit me better. And right now I don't want to take the time to do that. But again, I did buy 2 different sets of fabric for this project, and I have now watched another teaser for Bridgerton that does show a lot of hot pink Featherington stuff, so I may do another one of these rather soonish, but not right now. So I'm going to continue with the Laughing Moon pattern. I am going to recut it because obviously the neckline is too low, so I am going to recut it with the higher neckline, and I'm not gonna try it on again. I know I probably should, but I'm not going to. I am just going to recut the lining and cut out the other fabrics as well and put it all together and hope that it works. I just figured that I would show you my existing dress to show you how it fits. Obviously, I am having the chemise issues on here too. Probably also in the back. Oh, really? In the back. Yeah. I need a new chemise. I made this chemise like, I'm pretty sure it was 2011. Like one of the first ever projects that I made as a historical costumer. I really need a new chemise and I can't be bothered to make one that has a better neckline, but there we go. This is the one that I used for all my 18th century and Regency, and I need a better one. So yeah, so it totally shows there. It actually doesn't at all show here, so now I'm a little bit torn about raising that back up, but I can always cut it down. So I am going to raise it and then I can cut it down if I need to. And you can see how nice the fitted waistband winds up looking on here. I really, really like the look of the fitted waistband. The one thing that I'm thinking about doing is maybe making a little bit more fullness in the back. I mean, I know this is kind of supposed to be mid-Regency. Like I think Bridgerton takes place in 1813 is what they said. But I don't know. I like that fuller back look of the 1790s. Or I like the really kooky look of like the 1820s. Mid-Regency is like so boring. So yeah, I will probably make that choice to add a little bit of extra to get that like flow in here. We'll see how much fabric I have. But I am for sure gonna make this go in because obviously this one had that problem as well. And yeah, and I'll have to figure out the sleeves too because I'm not doing these super complicated sleeves. I'm just doing like probably what I did for the undersleeve, which is very, very plain puff, which should be what I had notated on that pattern. I will make a mock-up when it gets to that. So I'm going to cut out all of my pattern pieces, which is 4 layers worth of bodice pieces because I'm crazy. I don't know why I'm deciding to line a bodice that is already 3 pieces, and I probably don't need to, but I'm going to anyway. Here we are. Just to give it like a little bit more heft than the skirt, basically. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything cut out for this, and then we will see how far I get tonight. This is a technique that I use when I'm like, for example, raising a neckline. I will lay the item flat before I take it apart. So you'll notice this is still the side back seam or shoulder back seam, and I'll lay it flat on a table, my splotchy gross table. And I know that right about here is where I want it to go from like 0.75 inches up this way to a total of 1.75 inches up over here. And so I'll just lay it flat and then I will mark or measure that's at 0.75 inches and that 1.75 inches, and then I'll draw in a new line over here, and then I will measure this distance like over here as we get around this curve and say like, okay, well right here it needs to be such and such, right here it needs to be such and such, and I'll mark that on the fabric so that now when I take this apart and I'm cutting this out separately, I will know that, you know, it might need to be 1.75 over here, but maybe it's 1.5 over here, 1.25 over here, etc. And I'll know where that is on each of those pieces. And this is what I mean. So it's 1.75 all the way to here, 1.5, 1.25, 1 1/8. 1 1/8 is at the seam, so I mark it on both sides. Then it's 1 7/8 and 0.75. So I'm getting all of the pieces cut out. Unfortunately, I have run out of the pink and blue fabric, so I'm gonna have to go buy another yard of it because what I have left after cutting the skirt pieces is not enough for the front of the bodice. But these are 4 layers together: the sateen, the cotton, the glitter, and the embroidered, and I'm pinning them and I'm going to baste around the edges. So the back and the side back pieces are now all set to be assembled, kind of, because I think I do want to do piping and I haven't made that yet. But basically these, I basted the edge and then I serged the edge once it was basted so that I knew nothing would shift around. And so these are ready to go. However, the fronts are a little bit different because of course I have to make life harder on myself. I've decided that the inner layers, the sateen and the cotton, I think I am going to go ahead and do the darts with this, though I will probably curve them up nicer than this line. But these lines are going to serve at least as basting lines for right now, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to baste along here so that the layers won't shift when I go to do the darts. Then for the outer layers, which are not combined yet, but I do have both of them cut out, for these I'm going to baste along the bottom, and then I'm going to gather along the bottom. So I don't know if I'll do separate basting and then gathering, or if I'll just use gathering stitches as basting, probably the latter. But that's what's going to happen here. I'm going to lay this on top of the glitter fabric and I'm going to gather. So I'm going to have the dart structure underneath, but then the soft gathers up over the top so that it will look more like that dress kind of in the front. So that is my next step, is to do this bit. Then I still have to cut out the blue layer on the skirts. And once I cut that out, I can see what I have left that I can use for piping. I have this little piece that was left from the bodice. I don't think that's enough for piping. The bodices I cut out of like a 1 yard piece, and then I've got 4 yards, I think, that it's continuous. And I did manage to get the bodice out of this fabric here. I do not have enough for the sleeves, so I will have to go back to Joann's, get probably another yard or close to a yard for sleeves, both of this and of the sparkly fabric. And I will see, once I cut out the blue, if I also need to get any of the blue. I think that was the right choice in the end to do the darts on the underlayers, because now I'm not getting like a whole big extra poof from the blue, which was what I was worried I was going to get. I'm not sure that I love the poof from the overlayers, to be perfectly honest, but I also haven't distributed the gathering evenly yet, so hopefully that will kind of like ease itself out a little bit, but it does look really pretty. I also don't love that this isn't centered, but well, that is what happened. And hopefully that won't drive me crazy. I think once everything's like on, I'm probably going to add some sort of trim or something to this as well. I was also trying to decide if I wanted to do the waistband part as a contrast color, maybe as like a pink or as a blue, but without the floral. I think either way it's going to be without the floral, because there's just no way to get this to lay right in a small strip of the band. So if, you know, if it's just going to be maybe like these layers, that could be an option, or I could do a contrast. I don't know, I'm trying to decide that, but that's what it looks like so far. And now I'm not going to do the full assembly, but I am going to pin all of these layers together now and baste around the other sides here and baste the one layer to the other layer on the bottom, and then serge around the outsides. I might get the blue skirt cut out tonight, and then that will be where I'll stop. All of the pieces are now all flatlined. I did not wind up serging this bottom bit right here yet, just because I have a little inkling that it is not right. So that I don't have to pick out serging, I didn't serge it yet. Everything else is all serged, like even around the rest of the sides and everything, it's all serged. And I am going to, after I make the piping and put the backs together and put the backs with the fronts, then I'm going to try it on, see if this area looks right, like with the corset on and everything. And if so, then I will serge it before I put the waistband on. But that is it for now, and I'm gonna go cut out the skirt pieces. So I started to cut out the blue fabric, but I ran out of fabric, so I will have to get more so that I can cut the front panel of the blue. So instead, I decided to put together the sparkly layer, and there's Dora right there. And so the entire sparkly layer is now assembled, and I will assemble the blue after I get more for the front panel, and I will also assemble the floral tomorrow. I'm assembling each one of the skirt panels separately. They will all get gathered, I think, together and then attached to the waistband, but by assembling them separately, they all get to flow. This one, by the way, I did serge the edges here, even though I knew it would look kind of obvious, but this stuff, it's poly organza, it does fray, so I figured it was better to have a little bit of a stripe there with the serging, which will be covered up by the floral, than let it fray. So that's what I did. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to hem it, because I tried to roll hem on it and it just like pulled right out, so we'll see tomorrow. Right now I am attempting to make some piping that I may use in the side back seams and possibly around the waistband. And this is a 1 3/8 inch strip of cotton and also the organdy and then some like thickish yarn. And I'm putting them all together and ignoring Dora. And I am putting them all together with my piping foot on my machine right here, which has this little groove so that the piping, which is the yarn, can go through here nicely. And I'm going to see if I like it. If I do, I will have to make more since this will not be long enough for all of that. If I don't like it, well, then I'll scrap this whole idea in the first place. Really, Dora? Really? I'm working. Dora, I am working here. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You gonna sew for me too? No? After I pass it through the sewing machine, I then do also serge the edges. I don't have a piping serger foot. I really need to get one. So I actually wind up putting the whole thing underneath the foot like this and then using my nails to make sure it stays under the foot. So I guide it under the foot like that because otherwise it wants to jut out. But that is how I find I can get like a 1/2 inch seam allowance on my piping and still have it serged and everything. I'm now applying the piping to the back pieces here, and I do that because of the shape of the curve. I apply it to the backs, not the side backs. And so I've applied the piping here right along the edge, and now what's going to happen is I'm going to pin this side in place. Of course, it is curved seam, so, you know, make sure you pin it nicely for a curved seam. And then I'm actually going to stitch it in place from this side of the fabric because this way I can already see the stitch line where I've stitched the piping down in the first place. And of course, I did it the same color as my basting thread. Maybe not the smartest idea to baste with the same color, but I am going to stitch right along that line to make sure that the piping is evenly put onto both sides. Okay, yep, I love the look of the piping on here. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. Not sure yet about the waistband still, or even what the waistband will look like, but definitely piping on the side back seam, perfect. I have completed the bodice section here. I have not yet been to Joann's, so I do need to do that, but I think I'm going to go ahead and take the bodice along with me so that I can play with what maybe might look good as like a contrast waistband. I may do the blue with just the sparkly over it like I did for the piping. That is one option, but I also almost wonder if I want to bring in like pink or something like that to the waistband. So I'm also going to look at like trims, for example, that maybe I just want to kind of put a trim there on top of something and see if that would work for the waistband. And if not, I will just go with the blue and the sparkly because I do really, really like that with the piping. I did, by the way, add piping onto this seam here as well. Now on my other Regency dress and on like 1830s dresses, which have very similar piping layouts, I would normally also pipe the neckline. However, this silvery sparkly fabric, it's actually quite rough because all those little silvery things are little bumps. And so I don't know, I can pick them off, but I don't know that I would want that as piping right on my neckline where like the interior is going to be against the skin. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's what I'm gonna do there. If so, I will make more. I mean, if I pipe the waistband, I will also make more, but the nice thing about the waistband piping is that it doesn't have to be on the bias. It could just be straight because the waistband is straight. And then when I get back, I'm also going to probably go ahead at that time and try this on, see how the front of this bodice looks, and then if it's right, I will serge that so that the bodice basically is finished. I also need to do a sleeve mock-up probably at that time as well. Ta-da! I had a lot longer of a trip to Joann's than I thought I was going to because my local Joann's did not actually have any more of the blue fabric. So this has just come out of the dryer. I had to take an extra hour and go to a different Joann's to get my 1 2/3 yards that I needed to cut the front panel. But here we are. And I have the bodice on, obviously. I've realized that with Regency bodices, I can actually like either pin or fasten closed the first, I don't know, like 3 or so inches of the top of the back. And that way all I have to do is pin the bottom of the back, which I can do fairly easily on my own. And in fact, feeling the overlap right now, I think it's actually overlapped exactly where it's supposed to. So basically on this Laughing Moon pattern, they have you fold in 1 inch and then that fold overlaps itself. So I don't know how much that takes out, but basically that's how this bodice works. And there's hooks and eyes that you use as the closure, which will happen later, you know, once everything is put together. But everything is closed up like it should. This fits great. I think the gathering, so, okay, the gathering looking straight on like you are doing right now, I think looks good. However, when I look down, this side looks good, and this side is doing something weird and poofy, and I'm not sure why or how. I actually think it might have to do with the dart still being pointy. I don't know. I'm not sure how to fix it. So I might try and pay attention to like how I can fix this one, probably undoing the upper layers from the underlayer and maybe fixing the dart. I'm really not sure, but something needs to be fixed, I think, on this side. This side's great. So once I fix this, then I will serge off the bottom. And I have also prepped my waistband already, which I did not find any cute trims or anything like that at Joann's that would go well. So I think I am going to go with this for my waistband, which I guess I should explain what this is. This is one layer of cotton sateen, one layer of the blue cotton, and then one layer of the sparkly organza. And this I plan to pipe. We'll see. I plan to pipe it. I have not made the piping yet, but I also haven't like looked at how this will look with the skirt, so I probably should do that. But of course, now I'm wearing my corset, and to really look at how it looks with the skirt, I would have to have made the skirt, and this has not been cut out yet, and I have to cut this out on the floor. I didn't think this through. Also, this came out of the dryer while I was putting the corset on, so that did not help. So I am going to figure out what to do. I might be able to cut the, since it's just a front panel, maybe I can cut it on my table. I can't get on the floor and crawl around when I'm wearing this Regency corset. This corset is like less flexible than a Victorian corset, but it would still be hard to, you know, rummage around on the floor in a Victorian corset. But also B, I noticed that one of the bones is starting to poke out. I have patched so many boning ends on this corset. I need to make a new corset, and I don't want to, but I need to. Someday it will happen. I don't like making corsets. So sometime in the future, you'll probably see a video from me on how to make a Regency corset. That time is not now. So I'm gonna figure out what I'm doing order-wise and see how this looks. I'll probably just hold up some of the fabrics and see how this looks, because on camera, I feel like it's looking very bright. I don't know that I love it, but we'll see. So I've rigged this up in a really awkward way, but this is what I'm doing. These are just like pieces of the fabric, the pieces that I bought today of the fabric, and I have pinned them to my corset, and then I'm holding up the waistband here. And not only do I love it together, well, obviously the flowers aren't going up as far as they should, because this is a really big selvage, by the way, this floral fabric. So the flowers do not go at all the way to the edge. So they will go up a little higher here, and they won't be crooked because they're totally crooked right now. But not only do I love how it looks with the blue band, but it is also giving me total Rose sinking dress Titanic vibes, which is one of my favorite movie costumes ever. And someday when I brave working with chiffon again, which happens on very, very rare occasions with me, I will make that dress. But yeah, I'm really liking this. So, okay, that's gonna be the band. I am gonna pipe it just because everything looks better piped. So I'm going to make some piping for that. I also do still need to figure out if I'm gonna do the piping for the neckline as well. So the fix needed on this side was actually twofold. For one, the dart on this side, somehow I had made it go lower than the one on this side. So I needed to increase the height of the dart, and therefore also it increased like the width a little bit of the top of the dart where it was sort of like rounding out. So that helped a whole lot. But there also was excess of the net and organza layer, like the gathered layer. There was excess of that, probably because I'd eased it over a larger dart, or a dart that took up more length, if that made sense. So now that the dart used less space, the organza and netting layer needed to also use less space. So right now I've just sort of like, as I was wearing it, it's again pinned just in the back, I undid the stitches that were holding the two types of layers together, and then I just kind of pulled the outer layer down a little bit and pinned it in place. So I don't know how well you can see this, but it does dip below the cotton layer that is the base layer of the bodice, and I'm going to sew over that, and then I'm just going to serge off all of that excess, and that means that the bodice top will be good. I know earlier I did say that I should have done a sleeve mock-up at this point too, and I'm realizing right now that I said that and I should have. So I might go ahead and throw together a sleeve mock-up while I have this on, just because it's easier to fit that like while I have the corset on and everything too, because then I can actually have the bodice all the way on. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and try the sleeve mock-up next and see where that takes me. So I think the sleeve is just about exactly right. Now, one thing that I did with the previous time that I used this pattern was that I did have an interior fitted sleeve. I don't think that was actually part of this pattern. I think I made that up, and I did that so that the outer sleeve would look sheer. But this time I want the blue to be with the outer sheer fabrics. Obviously adding like the organza in there, organza has more body, so it will provide more poof than cotton. But I think the 3 layers together, I think it will all work out okay. Hopefully. So I'm actually just gonna go ahead and take this apart and use this as my pattern and cut out the other 5 pieces, I guess, for these 2 sleeves, because there's going to be 2 pieces of each of the 3 fabrics, so 6 pieces altogether. And the reason that I'm doing that instead of working from the original pattern is, if you remember back at the beginning when I very first talked about the alterations I was making to the pattern, I mentioned that this Laughing Moon pattern, I did actually last time increase the length by 3 inches this way and 1 inch in the rise. So like the whole thing, I mean, like, look how narrow that is under the arm. That would give you no sleeve under the arm whatsoever, and maybe some people are into that, but I don't like my arms. Like, my freaking chemise is longer than this. This would not work at all. So that's why I added 3 inches overall to the length and then 1 inch to just the poof rise. So I am going to get everything cut out sleeve-wise, and I am also going to, after that, I might do all of that while still wearing the corset so that I can then put it all on, or at least put one of the sleeves on, and make sure that it actually works. And then I'm going to take the corset off and finally cut out that front blue piece and get the skirts finished putting together. So I have stayed up way too late working on sleeves, but as you can see, I do have one sleeve in. However, as you can also probably see, it's doing something weird back here. I'm not sure what it is. I'm kind of hoping that maybe it just needs to be pressed, but it might be that it needs to have the gathers like redistributed, because I realized, like, at first this was doing something weird too, but then I just kind of pressed it down with my hand. I've not pressed the seam or anything like that, and I just kind of pressed it down with my hand and it's laying better. I can't really reach back here to do the same thing, so I don't know if it will go away. I think it kind of is. So maybe it's okay. I'm also honestly wondering, like, this is a little far off my shoulder. It should have been a little higher. I don't really think I'm gonna fix it. The other thing that dawned on me as I was setting this sleeve in is that if this were 1830s, I would be piping this seam, like I would pipe the armscye edge. I don't know if that was a thing in the Regency, and I don't really feel like resetting this sleeve or making that much extra piping. So I think I'm gonna press this down, set the other one really quickly just like I did this one. Once you have marks, setting a sleeve, a gathered sleeve, is like super quick actually, so that should take me less than 10 minutes. But either way, that'll be it for me today for you, so I will see you tomorrow. So I did finally get the blue front panel cut out, and as you can see, these skirt layers are now all together. I had run a gathering stitch, or 2 gathering stitches, all the way along the entire top, both to act as basting and to act as gathering, because I had intended to just pull up the gathers on all of it. But I started pulling up the gathers on the back over here, and the thread snapped. So I realized it was just too much to be in this area. Like, it was just too much gathered. It was too thick and everything. So I've decided to pleat it, which is what the pattern originally says anyway. So we have these lovely knife pleats here, again, just eyeballed because that is what I do. And they're about like 3/4 of an inch or an inch wide, something like that. And that makes the back of the skirt a lot more flowy and full than the front of the skirt, which is much more like columnar. So I haven't hemmed it or anything. Obviously, I haven't attached the bodice yet. And I still have to make the piping for the waistband. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to make the piping. Once I have the piping on the waistband, then I can set the bodice to the waistband, to the skirt, and all of it will be all together. So earlier today, I finally made my piping, all of that extra piping that I needed. So I have now put that piping on both sides of the waistband piece here. This needs to go onto the bodice. I have also put piping around the neckline of the bodice, and I've cut down where these like super thick piped seams were in the back. I've cut those down a bit, so hopefully once I press this, it will be able to press pretty nicely. This will all get stitch down by hand on the inside. So that is going to be one of my next things to do. I'm going to put the waistband on first, then I'm going to stitch this all down by hand. The other thing that I did was I decided on what I wanted to do to finish the sleeve edges, and that is do another of the like no pink embroidery layers. So this is just blue cotton with the sparkly on top of it, and these are, I think I did them 17-inch wide by 3-inch wide strips. So like basically enough. I have a tendency with Regency sleeves to make the bands too tight. So I tried to go a little bit looser this time, and then they're 3 inches wide because they're going to fold like this, and then a 1/2 inch of that is going to go away as seam allowance. On the inside, I am going to pick off all of the little silver bits. You can like pick them off with a fingernail. It takes a little bit of time, but that way I can have it be pretty on the outside and not on the inside. I'm going to do the same thing with the binding around the neckline. I've actually started to do it with the binding around the neckline as well. And I also chose with one of the strips, I actually started it while we were still kind of like in the selvage, because the selvage doesn't have all of those dots. So that way I have hopefully a little bit less to pick off. That way it still gives me the organza, the continuous organza. I didn't make it 2 separate pieces because I just didn't want to go through that hassle. So instead I'm picking things off, which is also a hassle, but you know, here you go. So that's the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put these ends together and then attach one side of this, the side that doesn't have all of the spots taken off of it. I'm going to attach that side to the bottom of the sleeve, and then I'm going to fold it inside and probably stitch in the ditch, I think, for that to finish off the arm, hem, band, cuff thing. Words, they're hard. And so once I get all of that done with the bodice, that means that the bodice itself is done other than the closures. And at that point, I can then put it with the skirt, because otherwise I've got all of this skirt that I'm just like dragging around, all of its layers and everything. I mean, they're all lightweight fabrics, but when you put that much of it, that many layers together, it just gets to be a lot of bulk and a lot of stuff to deal with. So I don't want to deal with it. So yeah, I'm going to work on all of those bodice elements, and I will show you some of them maybe at some point. And otherwise I'll just show you when it's ready to get the skirt on. The bodice is now complete with the arm band things, the waistband, and the piping sewn down. And it is time now to attach the skirt. All right, the bodice is now set to the skirt. The sleeve band maybe wound up being a little bit large, if I'm being perfectly honest, but it'll probably be more comfortable in the long run. Also, although I have not removed all of the little silver bits from inside the sleeves right now, they're actually not bothering me at the moment. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe I won't need to remove them. I think, need to remove the ones right around the neckline, because those I am definitely feeling. So I just need to scratch those off with my thumbnail. But otherwise, you can see, I think, why I like to do the waistband, because otherwise I'm going to get like a puff right away, and this gives me puff definition puff. I'm a little bit worried about the overlap in the back, if I'm being perfectly honest. The waistband, I knew when I was cutting it out, I cut it the full width of the fabric, but the full width of the fabric I knew was going to be slightly shorter than the actual width of the bodice. It wound up being 1 inch shorter, so it is a 1/2 inch less than the bodice on each side, and I'm a little bit worried about what that actual overlap is, because of course I can't see it. So I'm going to try to take lots of pictures, because the next thing that I have to do is put hooks and eyes on the back, or hooks and bars really, on the back closure of the bodice. Right now it is just, again, pinned in those 3 places. And the other thing that I have to do, which you cannot see at the moment, hi Dora, is that I have to hem this. I wanted a little bit of a train in back just for that like dramatic effect, but right now it is also a good 3 to 4 inches too long in the front. And of course with Regency you wear flat shoes. In any case, I am going to figure out the hook and eye situation and also the hem. Upon looking at the back and looking at the back closure, A, I'm worried that it's tight, but B, my back bodice portion is way too long. I guess it's probably because the skirt is now pulling everything down, but like, look at this. It is literally at my natural waist right down here. This is my natural waist. Well, it's maybe a 1/2 inch above my natural waist. It's so close to my natural waist. It is way too low. This should for Regency be probably close to 1 inch higher, like a lot higher than where it is. And it's starting to sink down from about like I mean, you can see it pulling down here, but it's really like where the side seam is that it needs to get raised. So I'm gonna reset the piped waistband part of the bodice. So like the skirt's gonna stay on the waistband, but the waistband will need to come off of the bodice and then get reset higher. So I'm gonna take care of that now. So I undid the back waistband. I undid it actually all the way to about here, and I like tapered it up until I was taking 1 inch in length out of the center back over here, which I have no idea how it's pinned right now because this is like, it's just taking that inch out. It's so much harder to reach. I guess I should have found that as a sign of if I was able to pin that before, then it was too long. Now I'm very much not very able to pin it. But it is still, I think, too long. I think it's like a 1/2 inch too long maybe now. It still seems way lower than a Regency dress should be, and I think now it's starting like around here that it's too low, because I can specifically see it sinking like right where the pleats start, kind of here on the side back. That's kind of where I'm seeing, well, you can really see it on the side. That's where I'm seeing it really sink. So that needs to go up maybe even more than a 1/2 inch there. Like I think that's actually lower there than the back is low, if that makes sense. So I definitely have some more unpicking and redoing to do on this waistband. I'm a little bit nervous though, because just by moving up the waistband onto the bodice, I think the bodice is a little larger there, and so I'm actually now like missing a full inch of waistband on each side instead of 1/2 inch, and 1 inch is where the fold is. So that's why it's like, I don't know what's going on in the back because I can't see. I don't know where it's overlapping. I can hardly reach to pin it. So this is going to be really interesting taking even more out. I have a feeling I will wind up needing to do some sort of a waistband extension. We'll see. I'm not sure, because whenever you're doing like an extension with piping, if you're adding 2 piped pieces together, it gets really obvious. So that was why I didn't do a little extension or whatever in the first place. But yeah, I didn't anticipate this. So hopefully we can make this better. So I literally can no longer pin this at all, but I think that it is now the right height, and I am feeling an overlap. I don't know what kind of overlap I'm feeling. I think I'm going to make a little like facing piece on the waistbands so that I don't have to like worry about folding them over. I'll just take a little bit out for seam allowance, and then at that point that will be the overlap. But like, I think I'm feeling at least a 1/2 inch overlap from where we are right now. So I have no idea if that's going to work at all, but I'm going to try making those facing pieces and then putting hooks and bars on there, seeing if maybe I can try doing it up myself, because I cannot pin it. And there's so much excess fabric in there right now because of how much I have taken up the back. I mean, I have taken up the back at this point 1 3/4 inches from where I was before. So it is way higher than where it was. It now, I think, looks pretty right all the way around. So once I get some hooks and bars on, then I can pay attention to the hem. So I don't know how much you'll be able to see of the back here, but I did make little like facing pieces basically for the back overlap area, and from pulling it in the back without any hooks and eyes on it, it feels like it will meet the spot that I want it to. I will show you closer up what that actually looks like, but otherwise that is good. I also cut off part of the front hem section of the outermost layer. The outermost layer doesn't have to be hemmed because it's mesh, so it's great. It doesn't fray, anything like that. I think I can go ahead and use that for the inner layers to hem those. I'm still not sure what I'm going to do with the organdy. I'll figure it out, and the cotton's going to get a machine hem. So this is what I mean with the facings. I've done this on the side that goes over. So I made this the side that goes over because the embroidery is prettier right here on the edge, but this is the side that goes over. It just has a plain cotton facing and was sewn on here, and then also here. This will be hand sewn down all along there. And then on this side, I did a facing with the organza over the top. This is the side that gets overlapped. So the other side is going to come to like right here is where the bars are going to be. And so this inch will be the overlap inch. I did also wind up resetting these pleats because they also had only gone to here. So now I wound up just making each pleat over here a little smaller, making go out further. And then this will all be overlapped. This will all be stitched down by hand. I am so absolutely thrilled with how this dress came out. I was really nervous about the closures with all of the work that I'd done to the back, but I was actually able to get one of the waist hooks done by myself before we went to take the pictures, and then Emily helped me out with like the 3 or 4 hooks that I had missed because I did the top and then the one at the waist. And oh my gosh, we found that tree and it was like, it was right out of Bridgerton. It was so perfect. And this was a park that we had never been to before. And we we're definitely going to have to go back and have like a really pretty picnic or something too, because it was right on the water and just so absolutely gorgeous. And I am like, I just love this dress so much. It totally makes me feel so princessy, especially with the tiara. And it has just been a wonderful birthday. After we did all of those pictures, we came home and my friends Emily, who helped me take all of the pictures, and Rachel and I had a lovely birthday tea, and it has just been a delight. I'm so thrilled with the dress. I think it's everything that I wanted it to be. It is so sparkly and shimmery. That shawl matched perfectly. That shawl, by the way, I don't think I mentioned this, but that's the one that I showed you guys a few weeks ago or a month or 2 ago in my thrift store haul. I got that recently from Value Village for like $10, and it was just an absolute perfect accessory with this. It could not have worked better. But I'm very excited for both this dress and for Bridgerton. At the point of filming this, Bridgerton has not come out yet. I know by the time you are seeing this, Bridgerton will have come out, but I think I might have to put this dress on again on Friday when it does come out and watch all of Bridgerton while wearing my new Bridgerton dress. That's going to be it for me on this dress and this project. By the way, if you do want to see more Bridgerton projects, I know that Kiralee Cosplay has also made a Bridgerton dress. Her video came out the same day as Bridgerton came out, and so I will link that down below. And hopefully you've been enjoying the 2nd season of Bridgerton by the time you're seeing this as well. But if you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and other costuming content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Sharon, Julie, and Mirage. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!